Hello everyone, I'm Ashley Schwalje. I'm the head of commercialization for patient engagement and recruitment at Citeline. Today we'll be speaking with you about expanding enrollment reach and accelerating timelines using patient and site-centric tech, as well as crowdsourced recruitment. But before I jump in, I'm just going to have Diane introduce herself.
Hello everyone, I'm Diane Montross. I head up the patient and site experience team at Moderna, and one of my roles is to bring forth awareness of clinical studies in the hopes of accelerating recruitment in a very patient-centric and inclusive manner. And I've been doing patient recruitment for over 20 years now and have recruited for hundreds of studies. And I've had the opportunity to work with a number of different recruitment vendors out there and patient organizations. And today I'm happy to share how Moderna has partnered with Citeline Connect by leveraging their unique recruitment paradigm.
Thank you. All right, so status quo, right? Most trials still fail to meet their enrollment goals. We've all heard it. We're super tired of hearing it. And SysGroup recently put out a study that said 49% of the general public is willing to participate in a clinical trial. That number is significantly down from prior to the pandemic when it was 85%. So it just blows my mind, all the work that the pharma industry has done to bring COVID vaccines to market in record time, and now that has resulted in patients being less willing overall to participate. So I'd like to propose just a moment of silence for all of us to acknowledge. No, just kidding, but really, that's tough. So that number is down. And then in that pool, only 3% of eligible patients will actually take the next step to enroll in the clinical trial. And even less physicians refer their patients into trials. So there's a huge lack of awareness here. I think the lack of awareness now is different than it was before. I think generally, prior to the pandemic, a lot of people didn't know about clinical trials. It just wasn't part of their world, their day-to-day. I think the general awareness of trials has increased, but now we have just a trust thing, right? Like the awareness is at a deeper level where patients aren't actually trusting the idea of going into a clinical trial. So all stakeholders in the mix here, they have their own challenges, their own connections. Sponsors, sites, patients, all have different needs, perspectives, and the relationships here are evolving, right? Even just the stats about between patients and sponsors, like the trust element. Things are, changing, and they're complex. And then when you throw recruitment partners into the mix, you have a whole nother different dynamic. And things can be really hard to navigate when you have so many different people working in a complex system. So if anyone here has ever worked at one of these recruitment firms, you will know that navigating pharma is hard. Whether you're an incumbent and you've been in the industry for many years, you're a new startup working in patient recruitment, or if you're a lab company or genetics company looking to break into the industry. You have to spend an incredible amount of time crafting the perfect proposal, the perfect pitch, with a really, really small chance of actually winning that bid. You have to go through an extensive and unique vetting process for every customer that feels like deja vu each time you do it. I can see why some folks would think that they're going insane going through that all the time. The procurement process alone can take, 3 months to 2 years. And oftentimes, the recruitment partners, by the time they're actually in the door for real, the trial that they were excited about making an impact on may be long over, unfortunately. And then even once, you've reached the status of preferred vendor, you may get a pilot thrown your way, or in some instances there's a reorg or your top champion leaves, and then you're kind of back to the beginning. So if there was a hashtag for that, it would definitely be send help. So I definitely feel for all of the recruitment partners out there. So Citeline Connect is doing a really big thing to help in this space to alleviate burden across the board. We are revolutionizing patient engagement and recruitment on a global scale, and we're doing it in a one-to-many model that's underpinned by technology. Again, alleviating burden for all stakeholders. So on this slide, you will see 10 logos of the diverse recruitment partners that are actively recruiting for Moderna's clinical trials at this time. So there's more, this is just a select group of them, but they're all diverse in nature. There are many different kinds of companies. You can see CVS, SubjectWell, Clinical Connection, Rare Patient Voice, BioLinked, which is a network of blood banks. So Citeline Connect has partnered with over 90 organizations globally, essentially to crowdsource clinical trial recruitment. So the collective consists of many different organization types, like I mentioned. So you have your traditional firms, but then you also have your non-traditional organizations that patient recruitment may not be their, bread and butter. Or maybe they've never worked in patient recruitment but are interested because they have access to a unique population and can really make a difference. So these organizations that we work with, again, globally, they're eager to receive recruitment opportunities from us, and clinical trial sponsors are eager to tap into a network in a one-to-many model. So it's definitely a win-win, and the whole process is underpinned by our technology, which helps operationalize the connections between all of these different stakeholders. So I'll show you a little bit more about what I mean in that regard. But what is ultimately the result of all of this? We're reaching more patients in less time. So greater volume, greater density. To make a fishing analogy, we're casting the net wider with smaller holes to get more fish. So yeah, we're combining partner approaches. All of these partners, may reach patients in different ways. They all have their, unique channels, tactics, for lack of a better term, to reach patients. And from a patient perspective, this is great, right? Sometimes when, patients are thrown into the abyss and chaos of a diagnosis, they have no idea where to start, right? They're desperate for options and for answers. If you're on LinkedIn at all, you may have seen this post go viral back in May, where a woman, her husband was diagnosed with glioblastoma, and she's tagging Daiichi and seeing, what can she do to help him find, help, right? So, we as an organization, or as an industry rather, we need to build back that trust and open clinical trials as a care option and through as many channels as we can. And we feel we're really making a dent into that in Citeline Connect. So again, we're doing it through our collective of recruitment partners and our technology. Technology is definitely transforming the way that we do things every day. A couple of real life examples, when I wanted to sell something, I would stick it to the side in the garage sale pile or the yard sale pile and hope that it didn't rain on yard sale day, which seemed to always happen actually, really weird. Now, I can click a few pictures on my phone, post it on, any of multiple platforms. There's Poshmark, ThreadUp, Facebook Marketplace, a ton of them, and sell it in a day. And then I have more space too. When it came to beach rentals, my family would literally cold call realtors on Cape Cod and hope to get lucky, on the beach rental that we loved, to having the entire world at our fingertips with Airbnb. So what we're doing in Citeline Connect is, very similar in a way. And so now I'm going to pass over to Diane just to talk about Moderna's experience and some of the challenges that we've helped her and her team tackle.
Thank you, Ashley. So I just wanted to share a little bit about our journey here at Moderna and with Citeline Connect. Back in early 2020, Moderna's biggest challenge was time. So Ashley talked about all the recruitment challenges that I know we're all very familiar with, but the biggest challenge for us was time, because what we were experiencing during the pandemic was unprecedented. And we knew we needed to move at lightning speed in order to develop a vaccine that could potentially save millions of people around the globe. So this is how and when our partnership began. And here's why. So at the time, Moderna was still working individually with recruitment vendors. And this process, as Ashley touched upon, was painfully slow bringing them on. So beginning with the whole evaluation process and going through RFPs and bid defenses, and then making a decision, and then hoping that you selected the right recruitment vendors to support your study. And then if the vendor was new to the organization, the need to put them through the vendor qualification process. And that takes a lot of time. And then once the vendor is contracted and qualified, then you need to establish meetings with them and build that governance and build that trust. And that also takes a lot of time. And then, of course, the continuously needing to provide updates on the study, site lists, protocol amendments. And if you have more than one vendor, so you're doing it multiple times. And then ensuring that your vendor is performing to how they said that they were going to perform in the RFP process. And then, looking at analytics and comparing against KPIs, and then invoicing and reconciling the invoicing and the projecting accruals. It is just this whole entire process takes a lot of coordination, takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of resources. And it's very limiting. So it limits you to either one, maybe two recruitment vendors. And this really wasn't efficient. And so imagine a world in which you can not only work with one or a few vendors, but you can work with many. And that's really the power of the Citeline Connect platform. So we started off by building this beautiful clinical trials website, one that is inclusive in design, content, and imagery. And from a health literacy perspective, we provide information and education on clinical trials. It's accessible for those that may have a disability. We provide a chatbot for real-time responses. But most importantly, it's easy to navigate and to match to and pre-qualify people to studies of their interest in their preferred locations. And so this website serves as a centralized hub. And so many different sources can drive into this one platform. And so the ways of working of just one or two vendors, now we have over 20 recruitment partners recruiting for one of our studies. So you can imagine how that has really impacted our recruitment timelines. More recently, we launched a Moderna community. And this allows an individual who may not have matched at the time to sign up. And as soon as a study becomes available in their area of interest and their location, we'll notify them. And we've seen some great interest. This is within the last 2 months. We already have 20,000 members. We're continuing to grow that. Is that 44%? Ashley told me that. And so, we have plans on expanding that exponentially as well. And this allows us, we essentially have a pool of engaged participants who have raised their hand and said, yes, I want to join a Moderna clinical study. And so this helps us be more proactive in our recruitment strategies. But another thing it does is it allows us to cultivate a relationship, really, with interested participants to keep them engaged and informed and share information on Moderna and our studies. So I think I'm going to hand it So Ashley's going to walk us through the different journeys.
All right. Thanks, Diane. So this is what the patient journey looks like with Citeline Connect. So somehow the patient discovers the clinical trial through the Recruitment Collective, so our recruitment partners doing what they do, putting out ads, talking to patients, bringing awareness to clinical trials and to specific trials. And then, the patient will then enter the clinical trial microsite. Okay, so that could be from Moderna's webpage. Again, it could be from any of a number of different channels that have been activated to recruit patients for the study. The person will then take the pre-screener questionnaire to check eligibility for the clinical trial. And if they are eligible or potentially eligible, they can then opt in to share their contact information with the closest clinical trial site to them. Earlier in September, we announced a partnership with Proof Pilot, which allows the folks who have successfully pre-screened to go ahead and actually schedule their first visit with the site. And then in the US, they also have the option to sync their medical records. So that will allow the site to very easily see if that particular patient is qualified or not qualified, right? So that ultimately saving time on all sides if someone doesn't qualify based on their medical records. From there, the patient is enrolled. And as Diane mentioned, if a patient takes the pre-screener and they do not qualify, Moderna uses the option to keep in touch with that patient through their community. Like, sorry, you're not eligible for this trial at this time, but we want to stay in touch if you want to stay in touch. And so it gives the individual the option to do so. So our pre-screening technology, it allows patients to be pre-screened in a compliant manner. So we support the processing of PHI, PII. I know data privacy is a huge topic. And we make sure that participants are consented throughout their entire journey. So on the site side, the sites are also given access to Citeline Connect. So they are loaded into the enrollment hub. They're marked as an active site. They'll receive a notification that a patient has pre-screened, and we also track where those individual patients have come from, like what source. So is it from a particular recruitment partner? Was it from the Moderna's website? So we have visibility into that. Again, the patients can be given the option to schedule if the sponsor wants. They can sync with site calendars. And also the beauty of the Citeline Connect site portal is that our sites can actually use filters to focus on specific referrals. So they have the ability to filter by demographics to support diversity and inclusion goals if that is a focus for the sponsor, which we all know it mostly is these days. And then the site works with the patient to enroll them. So ultimately, we're empowering sites to be better recruiters and not waste their precious time and resources working through unqualified and non-eligible referrals. So ultimately, this is translating into better relationships between sites, sponsors, and patients. Okay. This is probably a little bit hard to see. I realize the light is making colors a little bit hard, but this is a little bit about Citeline Connect's growth story. I will say this is definitely a story of rags to riches. I'd say we are a startup within a larger company. 2 years ago, Connect was barely more than an idea. We partnered with a handful of recruitment partners and had some very basic technology to support pre-screening. We started out really only supporting COVID trials, wink, wink. But since that time, our growth has really exploded. So now we have a comprehensive solution that really helps clients globalize and also engage stakeholders on an enterprise level as well as on a trial level. We've introduced efficiency for all sponsors, sites, patients, and recruiters alike. We announced the Proof Pilot partnership I mentioned to take us further into the patient engagement journey. So we're no longer just playing in that top of funnel. We're now moving into the trial experience. And at the bottom of the slide, you can see some of our stats that really speak to our success. We have over 90 recruitment partners actively working with us, 50 of which have global reach. We've referred 260,000 patients and randomized 18,000 of them across 48 trials and 23 disease areas. For those who are taking out their calculator right now, it's about 14.5%. We have over 2,000 sites and 5,000 site users on the portal, and we're HIPAA and GDPR compliant in over 50 countries. So yeah, that is quite a growth story that I and Citeline are extremely proud of. So following that humble brag, I will pass back over to Diane just to talk a bit more about our relationship specifically.
So Sightline Connect is supporting many of our studies to date with over 160,000 referrals. And now I have to ask you, who are those other 100,000 referrals with? We have over 160,000 referrals, which is just phenomenal, and over 10,000 of those have randomized. And there's many of those that are still working their way through the funnel, so that percentage will increase. And just a few call-outs in some of the programs that I want to highlight. The COVID-19, our COVE study, we were really wanting to ensure that those that have enrolled were fully representative of those at most risk of the disease. So we really needed to focus on increasing our diversity. And so when we started working with Citeline, we were at 24% persons of color, and then in less than 2 months, I should say, we increased that to 37%, which was phenomenal. Our CMV study, which is cytomegalovirus study, we are currently enrolling, and to date, the randomizations that have come through the centralized campaign through Citeline Connect accounts for about 42% of the U.S. enrollment. And then lastly here is our respiratory phase 3 RSV program for older adults. We are seeing great conversion, and 1 in every 5 referrals are randomizing, which is phenomenal. And we have launched in the U.S. and Canada, and now we're looking to launch globally at this point, so beyond North America. And as Moderna continues to evolve and become a more global company, we're really excited to see how Citeline Connect can support us in those ex-US efforts. So if any of you out there is a vendor that can support ex-US, please see Ashley immediately. But thank you. That's it, I think. Is that it? Oh,
Yeah, I just have some key takeaways, and then we will wrap. All right, so people want to be engaged in trials, right? But we need to open more pathways. We need to build that trust. With Citeline Connect, we're connecting all of the strategies, tech, workflow, and data so that all of the stakeholders are experiencing greater efficiency. The future of clinical research and human health definitely relies on novel approaches that are innovative, predictable, and scalable. And I'm, again, very proud to say that we have all of those things going on with Citeline Connect. So I think we have maybe a couple minutes for a question or two.
1 minute.
1 minute.
Yeah, I'm afraid we may not have time for the question. But
Okay.
First of all, I would like to thank Diane, because I know it's really rare now that pharma in this competitive space accept to present, I would say, some of the tools and technology and use case, because I think we are all eager to know and to understand why such a company has been successful in delivering. I mean, you have your technology to do the vaccine, but then there was the clinical trial. So I think it's really thanks to you and Moderna, and thanks for you also, Ashley. So I think we can applaud them for sure, because they have done a great job. As I said, unfortunately, we don't have time for questions, but if you are at the coffee break later on in about 1 hour and 30 minutes, I'm sure you will have plenty of questions. Mika?
Let's do 2 questions.
Okay, so... Okay, okay, so the chief is saying we can have questions. So who wants to... Okay, you are.
Hiya, it's working. Charlie from Langland. Thank you both. That was a really interesting talk. The question I had was just around site engagement, and in terms of sort of how you found, or how you've sort of found success in getting the sites to sort of follow up and triage those leads that come through the recruitment efforts.
Mm-hmm. Excellent question. So yeah, that was a challenge for us, especially on the high volume trials. So we started doing it ourselves, right? So our implementation delivery team, will monitor the patient flow at the sites, and if there's a site that is clearly, behind or has a really high volume coming in, we will actually call them to help keep pushing things along. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, Diane's
Okay.
gonna also add.
Don't move.
So just to add on to that, I think it's a great question, because you don't want to generate 160,000 referrals and not do any, and make sure, don't know what happens to them. One of the things, in addition to what Citeline Connect, they do offer the support, but because we saw such a great opportunity here in engaging with our sites, we actually started our own site support and engagement team to work very closely. And fortunately for Moderna, we use a lot of the same sites, and we are becoming quite familiar with them and have built really deep trusted relationships. So we know when we're breaking them with referrals and to pull back. But in many, many cases, they say to us, send us more, we need more.
Quick question from
I'll be really fast. I'm Leah from Roche Genentech, and my question is about kind of the patient matching aspect. If a patient pre-screens and isn't eligible for, like, say, a Moderna trial, have you thought about cross-industry data sharing so we can patient match across the industry?
So Citeline Connect has thought about it, but I will say we haven't actually done anything in that space yet. I mean, I think if there's an openness and a willingness to do that, we would certainly be on board for that. Yeah, I mean, but I think the most important thing is that the pharma companies and the CROs are, game to share in that way.
Okay. Maybe you want to add, please?
Do you want to add,
Diane?
I don't want this to go on record, but I would say that I would very much be interested in that. I think it offers an incredible patient experience.
Yeah, and I think it will be good also for the pharma industry reputation if we are able to show that we can work all together for the benefit of the patient. Diane, Ashley, thank you very much.
You.
It was really good. Thanks.